Hello and welcome to today's podcast. Today is Friday, 18 April. This one is coming to you pretty early as I missed yesterday's and we are traveling again today. So, in today's podcast, we're going to cover Germany is launching a police probe into anti-deportation protests at a university. Google has monopolized online ad markets, says a US judge. And a French program for US scientists has drawn a flood of applicants. So firstly, German police have launched around 100 criminal investigations following the occupation of a lecture hall at Helmholtz University in Berlin by pro-Palestinian protesters. The occupation, which involved 89 individuals, was in response to the threatened deportation of 4 international students linked to earlier protests at the university. Police eventually cleared the hall after the university leadership requested intervention, citing vandalism and banners that allegedly denied Israel's right to existence. The protesters are being investigated for multiple offences, including trespassing, disturbing the peace, and using banned symbols. Authorities are also reported that some protesters threw fireworks and possibly urine at officers. The protest was part of a broader wave of pro-Palestinian demonstrations across Germany, particularly in response to Israel's military actions in Gaza. Critics accuse Germany of suppressing these protests with aggressive police tactics and unconditional support for Israel. The 4 students facing deportation are 2 Irish students, 1 Polish and 1 American. They were accused of threatening university staff in October 2024 when protests occur, but they have not been convicted. While Germany has revoked their freedom of movement rights, a court temporarily blocked the deportation of one of the Irish students. So what? Though it is unsurprising that some university students don't want to see their friends deported from the country, this likely does not reflect the same feelings of the wider university or country. However, these protests are highly unlikely to have affected the students' deportation orders, as they clearly committed crimes. While further protests are likely, it is also likely that this could lead to further expulsion of students and police action against the protests. And next, a US federal judge has ruled in an antitrust case on Thursday that Alphabet, Google's parent company, illegally monopolized ad software used by website publishers. With the new ruling, the US Department of Justice may be able to call for the breakup of the company. The department said that Google should at least sell off Google Ad Manager. Prosecutors said that most websites use a trio of Google Ad software products, publisher ad services, advertiser tools, and ad exchange that make it difficult for website publishers to escape Google's monopoly. The online giant that runs the most popular search engine in the world has, as well as other applications such as YouTube, which is facing another trial in Washington in which the DOJ is calling for Google to have to sell its Chrome browser and take steps towards its domination of the online search engines. So what? While this is probably a great move for consumers, it's likely that Google will take this to further higher courts and continue to slow it down in the court system in an attempt to not have to break up their large company controls. However, I think it's likely most people would benefit if Google did have to break up some of these services, as it could lead to lower prices in advertising and less aggressive tactics when it comes to the pushing of ads online and the use of people's personal data. And lastly, a group of US-based researchers is due to start work at a French university in June as scientists and academics scramble to deal with the massive cuts introduced by President Donald Trump's administration. France's Aix-Marseille University said it is a safe place for science in a scheme which, in March, became available to US scientists threatened by cuts to higher education in America and was flooded by applicants. The Safe Space for Science scheme aims to attract US workers from fields such as health, queer studies, medicine, epidemiology, and climate change. The university said it had received 298 applications for the program, of which 242 were deemed eligible, and the applications were under consideration since there were only 20 spots available. The applicants included 135 US citizens and 45 dual nationals. With many US-based academics considering crossing the Atlantic amid growing threats to their livelihood, Europe is sensing an opportunity. At least 13 European parties, including Germany, France, and Spain, have urged the European Commission in a letter signed in March to move quickly to attract such talent. The European Council for Research, an EU body that finances scientific work, told the news agency it would plan to double the reallocation budget granted to researchers moving to the EU. Reuters also reported that it is seeing negotiating documents in the lead up to the formation of Germany's coalition government, where it plans to lay out a program to attract up to 1,000 researchers. So what? This could be extremely helpful for the EU's science and research capabilities, but it would likely come with some negative repercussions from the current US administration, who would likely not take too kindly to the poaching of their scientists, who they'll claim have they paid to study in the US. While it's possible that Donald Trump just doesn't care about science and academia, it's also possible that he just takes a harsh line with this and kicks off like he does about lots of other random stuff. Nobody really knows how he will react, to be completely fair. But all in all, this could be good for both research as a whole, as it's more budget from the EU towards science and research, but also good for Europe as a whole. Maybe not so good for the US, but we'll see. They don't seem too bothered if they're cutting all their budgets and slashing their programs. So that's life. Thank you for listening to today's podcast. I've been your host, Daniel, and I'll see you next time.